All right, I'm going to wait a little bit to get started, but today we are going to just kind of jump back into going over our similarity. I know I've been waiting for all of you guys to hand in your ENC pages, your written work. So what I want to make sure is that we understand that we are still going to have an assessment of the chapter. So I've actually written down some practice questions that are very close to what you're going to see on your assessment for the chapter. That way we kind of get back in gear as to what we're looking for. And I want to make sure that we're all clear on what is needed. So give you a second just to kind of look at that. If you can, please say hi in the chat so I can see who's all with me today. Landon, I did get your information. I got quite a few. I did not get everybody's yet, so let's hope that that happens. I have till Friday to grade everything and to get everything into the grade book and accounted for. I will say the only interesting thing is I did have a few students asking yesterday afternoon why certain things weren't in NORI. We couldn't answer them, and I had been very specific that as of yesterday at midnight, the due date was in. Those were items that um, we were had a deadline that we were supposed to shoot for about 2 weeks ago, but I had the computer set up so that it still allowed us to do it through Sunday. But again, our benchmark stuff and what we actually did, I understand, are two very different things. Please make sure that if you, for some reason, still have some things that you're concerned about, you can get them in, and I will attempt to update everything tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday. I'll be grading a lot of stuff today, so we should be okay with that. My Easter was nice, quiet, but I laughed. I made everybody dress up, so at least it felt a little bit like Easter. I hope all of your Easters were nice. Can you post on Google Classroom who hasn't turned in their ENC pages yet? No, I'm not going to post them to Google Classroom, Reagan. I don't want to embarrass anybody. What I will do is if I notice somebody did not turn them in, you're fine. I will email them personally to their SailorNet account. That way, hopefully, that will be a way to get a hold of somebody. I also know that I don't want to nag or frustrate or overwhelm anyone, but I do know that I've been making some phone calls. So I know that that's tough, but it is something that I just want to make sure everybody's on top of things, and regardless of what our grading scale is or what we're working with, I did make a note that said we don't lower the bar just because. This is a true testament of how hard you guys want to focus. I didn't say work, but how much you want to focus when things aren't normal. And this is going to definitely define you as individuals and as students as we get older. What are we able to handle, and how do we adjust when we have to? It's not easy for anyone. I don't like this. I'm staring at a computer screen with words right now, and I would rather see your faces and have some interaction than sitting at my kitchen table looking at a computer. So we all have to adjust, and we all have to focus, and we all have to try, regardless of what we want to do. Because, not going to lie, I'd rather walk over right now and get a blanket out of my dog's crate that for some reason she has in there and shouldn't. And I am not going to do that because I'm going to focus on you guys. So I will be emailing and doing those things. So hopefully, as you guys get ready for the assessment, I'm not going to call it a test. I don't want to call it a test. I do, however, want to give you the opportunity to still have a grade for this. I think the assessment now will be much easier than what we've been practicing even in the no-re assignments. And I know that the no-re assignments were frustrating for some of us because, again, we're entering the information. Why isn't it working out? And it was this idea that we need fractions, not decimals, or we need the symbols and we're not putting the symbols in. And we realized that the concepts we understand, we just need to, again, pay attention to detail. So as we go through this, again, please always check Google Classroom, check your email. I'm going to keep things real short and sweet today. So you see that I have a couple questions up here right now that you're going to take a look at. I only have 6 total questions. 7 total questions that we're going to practice. Again, they are really close to what you would see on your assessment. So I'm going to give you a second to copy those down. You'll see that we have solved the proportion, solved the proportion. I know I crammed this in here a little closer than I anticipated, but the nice part about number 3 is it is giving you the proportion to plug everything in. So I want to make sure that we're not only looking at what the questions are, but how we're going to use our context clues. All right, so you're going to see again that I'm going to do the work on a separate sheet of paper, and I will post everything again, blank copy, and the answers to Google Classroom so that you have something to work with. Please make sure when you are cross multiplying that our equal sign does show back up. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I will tell you that I still have people that forget that with a proportion, that equal sign is supposed to stay there. So this is kind of, again, our means extremes product situation where we do cross multiply. And when we divide by 3, we end up with 60. So again, if this is a question that you do have on your test, that's all I'm looking for, is x equals 60, and we're done. Now, the second one is truly, I did the first one because, again, it's easy. It should be easy. You should get it right. There's no tricks. The second one, however, please don't forget when we do have a situation where we're multiplying a variable times a variable, don't forget that a variable times itself is going to then be, in this case, x squared. And we end up with 4 times 9 is 36. So when we do take the square root now of both sides, we have to remember, and this is where, again, we said in algebra, we didn't have any issues with this answer. But in geometry, we only talk about the actual positive value because there's only positive length. So when we do take the square root, we end up with x equals not only positive 6, but a negative times a negative would also give us 36. So our answer would have to be plus or minus 6, which does translate into a positive 6 or a negative 6. Again, we don't put the plus sign for positive, but this would be our answer, and we can't forget that because that is supposed to be the answer that we get. So easy, shouldn't be an issue. We have to make sure we don't forget about the both positive and negative of that. If you have questions as we go through this, just again in the chat, if you would, please make sure that you ask. And again, if you've just joined us, I know that I've said it over here, but just please say hi so I know who's all with us, at least at the live posting. Again, I know some of us watch later, but I want to make sure that we are, again, at the live version, who that is. So just say hi. Again, you guys can rewatch this, pause, start, take your time, whatever you need. All right, so then the next question switched gears a little bit. Instead of just solve a proportion, now we're going to look at the picture. And in this case, for number 3, we want to use our proportion that they give us and go ahead and fill in. It's not requiring us at this point to know if this has, hi Hannah, if they're similar. It's just saying fill in what the ratios are so that we know that we have the length of AB over the length of BC, the length of ED over the length of DC, and it wants us to find the length of ED. So in number 3, when we have our ratio, make sure, don't overthink this, just make sure that you plug in all of the information. So the length of AB, they're telling us, is 3. The length of BC is 9. The length of ED, we don't know. And the length of DC is 12. Now at this point, there are some of you who already know the answer and you don't have to do the cross multiplication. You see the pattern. That's fine. I still suggest, however, that in cross multiplying, we eliminate our brains from guessing wrong. When we divide by 9, we end up with ED is 4. And you can see that if I would have plugged that back in, 3 over 9 is 1/3, 4 over 12 is 1/3, it fit. But again, it gives us this proportion to plug in. All right, so again, I'm just going through and making sure that I give you questions that are similar to what you're going to have on your assessment. So number 4. Number 4, right now I'm telling you in the directions what's similar. So in number 4, what I'm going to first ask is I want to know the scale factor. So let's just talk about our scale factor of LMNO to RSTU. So I want it in a specific order. Then what I want to know is, I'm assuming should be pretty obvious, what is W, X, and Y? Let's solve for all 3 of our variables. And let's go ahead and figure out then what is the ratio of the perimeter of LMNO to RSTU. So I've got these 3 separate questions that are all going to have to revolve around those 2 diagrams. Hi, Brooke. Hi, Scarlett. So with this, I just want to make sure that I'm not overthinking anything. So first thing for part A, I need to make sure that I look that this is LMNO to RSTU, so small to big. And I could use the LMNO similar to RSTU to truly help me set up again my proportionality statement. So LM and RS are the first two, MN and ST are the second two, NO over TU, and then first and last, because we have to close this guy off, LO over first and last RU. So truly this is what's happening, and I only looked at this. I didn't even look at my picture because I don't want to trust that the picture is orientated, drawn the same way. I want to rely on what they told me here. So I looked just at this to set up my proportionality statement. What I'm then going to do is I'm then going to use my diagram. LM was W, SR, RS was 7, MN was 3, ST 6. We have 3.5 and X, and we have Y and 10. So now what I've done is I've plugged in all of the lengths so that it matches with the actual values. So for part A, the only one that I'm going to be able to use is the one that has a complete fraction. So to answer part A, our scale factor would be a 1 to 2 ratio. Now you could write it 1 to 2, you could write it 1 to 2, or you could write it 1 over 2. I don't care. I know a lot of people feel better doing it this way because it kind of matches mathematically what it's saying there, but any of them are sufficient. The 1/2 will help us with solving for the two other problems. So now in part B, I can use my scale factor, or I could use 3 over 6. It divides itself out anyway. And I could do 1/2 would equal W over 7. 1/2 would equal 3.5 over X. And 1/2 would equal Y over 10. So our scale factor should then equal all of the other unknowns. And we could see that W is going to be 3.5. X is already 7. And we find Y is 5. So part B, we've already found what those answers are. So I could then plug that in because part C is what is the perimeter. So now for part C, I can go ahead and around this smaller one, I know Y is 5. I have 3.5 over here, 3.5 over there. I'm just giving myself a picture to keep track of. I have 6 already, I have 10, I have 7, and they told me we found X was 7. So here, 3.5 and 3.5 is 7, 7 and 8, that guy's 15. My perimeter of LMNO is 15. 14 and 16, the perimeter here should be 30. Now, it's interesting because if you already remember, and some of you are like, Kath, you've done too much work. Why are you doing this kind of work? We already have it memorized that the scale factor for the lengths of the sides will always match the scale factor or the ratio of the perimeters. And if you look, LMNO's perimeter to the perimeter of RSTU is 15 over 30, which again is 1/2. So if you have it memorized that the ratio of the sides will always be equal to the ratio of the perimeters, you have saved yourself a ton of time. But I showed you why. All right, almost done. Again, I will have all of this posted to Google Classroom so that you can practice it again on your own, and then you will see the answers as I've done them, and you don't have to worry about seeing the answers while you're trying to practice them. Kind of keep you honest. So for number 5, we just want to know, how are they similar? We have to remember that in this case we have angle-angle similarity, we have side-side-side similarity, and we have side-angle-side similarity. We also talked that there is a dead giveaway for any of these, that if you're going to guess, if there's no side lengths given, that most likely it's either no, they're not similar, or angle-angle. And if you see side lengths everywhere, it's most likely side-side-side, or no, they're not similar. So we're going to look at, again, for lack of a better phrase, our context clues to help us. So if we had to make a guess, angle-angle. However, we want to check to make sure that that's the case. And if I had to guess, I'm going to say side-side-side similarity. But again, we're going to have to check to make sure that that's the case. Any guesses if part A is similar? And if so, what about it makes it a yes? I'll let you guys answer that here. I'll wait for the chat. I know our delay stinks. Okay, but why? I agree, it is angle-angle, but tell me why. What about it is going to make it? Yep, angle-angle is correct. And we do have, correct, Sarah, thank you very much. We do have our vertical angles, and we do have our alternate interior angles. So our vertical angles will make the at least one, and then because these guys are parallel, you are going to have alternate interior. So yes, it is angle-angle. The minute we see those parallel lines, dead giveaway. So what about part B? What do we think part B? All right. I see another yes. Now in this case, be very, very careful, because what we don't want to have happen is we don't just want to check 1.5 to 3, 2 to 4, and then these guys don't look like they're that same situation. So in part 5B, what I'm going to suggest is the age-old split your triangles. Make sure that you are looking at a EB as the smaller triangle, sitting on top of ABE that bigger triangle. EB is this 1/3, or excuse me, 3 1/3. And then over here we have 10. And then up here we have 1.5 and 2. AD is 4.5 and AC is 6. So I have to make sure that I add those guys up. And then what I want to check is 1.5 to 4.5 the same as 3 1/3 to 10, the same as 2 to 6. And again, I can go to my calculator. I can check, is 1.5 divided by 4.5. I see that it's this repeating 3 situation. Again, I can change fraction to decimal, and I see that's 1/3. I can go ahead and take 3 ABC1, ABC3, divide it by 10, and see what that answer is going to be, and that gives it to me right away as a fraction. And then I know I can reduce. I've got that one under control. So now we know for certain that our answer is truly yes by side, side, side. Now again, if we're just guessing, that's pretty easy, but we want to make sure that we do check to make sure that we don't play any games with you and they look like they match top to bottom, and then here we put a 5 to 10 because that would be something that we would all go, oh yay, it's 1 to 2, 1 to 2, 1 to 2, it works. And again, that's not something we want to make. We have to make sure that when we're checking if the triangles themselves are similar, the lengths of the triangles are in proportion, not just pieces of the triangles. All right. I said only a few more. So we're going to look now at number 6, which when we talked about equivalent ratios, we just want to make sure that if we do have our parallel line theorem, that we can follow the lengths in proportion. So it does say if parallel lines intersect transversals, they will divide the transversals proportionally. So in part A, we have the ratio AB to BC. What would have to go in the top for me to keep this in proportion? And then if we're talking about it the same way, AC over something has to have the same ratio as BC over YZ. So we want to know what's going to go in the top over here for part A. Yep, XY would go on the top. And what about 6B? And you are correct. XZ is correct there. Nice job. Again, just follow the patterns. It's not supposed to be, majorly difficult. All right, last question, just to kind of give you the gamut of what we're looking at here. I have solve for x, and we do have our angle bisector theorem now. And we want to remember that as long as we don't set up our proportion crisscrossing through our bisector, that we're good to go. So in number 7, if you would try number 7, plug in your answer without me setting anything up. We'll see what we have, and then I'll show the work and we'll move on for the day. All right, we got x equals 7.2. Anybody else get anything, or do we agree with Landon? All right, Sarah's got 7.2 as well. Let's check this out. We're going to, again, I like to order it side of the side of the angle to the side of the angle. So I'm going to do 20 to 16 is in proportion to the opposite side that's been divided. So 9 to x, again, side to side. I'm going to keep that same pattern. We end up with 20x equals 16 times 9 is 144. And when we divide 144 by 20, we end up with x equals, now we did find out the hard way that, again, 7.2 is what we found on our calculator, but please don't forget, 144 divided by 20, if I do second fraction to decimal, don't forget that that is 7 1/5. That way we don't forget that it is possible that in certain places we're dealing again with fractions, not decimals, especially when that decimal isn't something as nice as 7.2. So those are just, again, some questions that are going to come off of your assessment. I'm going to post all of this to Google Classroom. This is not going to be a part of your third quarter grade. This will be a part of your fourth quarter grade because there's no way that you're going to be able to do it all and get it back to me according to our rules set forth for the online learning. This will, however, be your first grade, your first grade going into fourth quarter. So again, do not lower your standards. Do not lower that bar. Continue to work to the standard that you have set for yourself as honors students. Keep pushing yourself, and again, keep figuring out what you have to do when adversity essentially is in front of you every day. So keep working hard. You'll check Google Classroom for the information. I will reach out to any individual who has not turned in their ENC pages. I've received many, many, many from you guys, so that's a good thing. No news is good news, so don't worry if you don't see something back from me. That means I've got everything, and you should see a grade going in the grade book very soon. If there's any other questions, please feel free to email me, and we will meet back on Wednesday. Check Google Classroom for any information concerning that. I hope you guys have a good Monday. It's a little dreary out, so stay focused. Don't take too many naps today. and I will talk to you guys Wednesday. Have a good day.